the original intent of the bill was to work on what I call the process side of it, to clarify time for response, method of request, cost issues, appeal issues, training issues, and that was the focus. The issue of what records were available. I wanted to clarify existing law, but within the structure that had existed in Pennsylvania for decades. It became clear the deeper I got into the subject that this was a good time to change the underlying structure and to affirm that public records are presumed to be open and accessible to the public with the necessary exceptions. The necessary result of that, though, is there will be a period of uncertainty, a period of litigation, a period of clarification as the new statutory framework is tested in the courts, as people get to use it. So it is a longer-term view, but we're not going to be doing a major revision of this law. As you said earlier, it's been, I think you said 50 years. I don't know if it's quite that long since a major revision, but it might have been. This is the time to do it. We're going to invest the time now and try and make this law the best that it can be at this moment in time, realizing that there'll be amendments in the future. But we've been working through the summer on a reversal of the presumption and the necessary exceptions to that framework, and are in a position right now to share the amendment to the original bill that I put in. The process is the same. I mean, the issue of what records are available is the interplay between the starting point that records are presumed to be available and what exceptions there are to the general rule, or the existing law, which is a definitional approach, and the judicial gloss on the definitions. And there'll be changes in the result, but I think the greatest benefit will be a greater clarity in what is a public record when the law is more clearly stated, more comprehensively stated. Part of the process of developing the legislation is to make sure that we cover those exceptions where people have a legitimate expectation of privacy in information, and not having anticipated every possible request. Records that are now not public and available for inspection, people may be relying on that past history, aren't thinking about the need to articulate that if you change the law, make sure you don't forget that this information is sensitive. One of the issues that came up, for example, is the issue of 911 calls. Some counties evidently do not make that information available. Some do. What should that be? It requires a look at that. It requires some analysis of where do we want to land on an issue like that. We had an issue with stenographers, court stenographers. Is that people who make a transcript and sell their transcript as part of their business? Should that be treated the same as any other public record, or because it's a work product of a stenographer, should it be treated differently? And I don't have any doubt that as we go further down the road, there'll be other unexpected, unanticipated fact patterns that will require some special treatment in the exceptions. However you formulate it, and the formulation I'm working on now is a presumption of openness with exceptions, you end up with a body of information that is available in a body that's protected. And at the margin or intersection there's a healthy tension between people wanting a a sense of privacy about their medical records or their personnel records, and the basic premise that governmental operations are open to the public. I think most people would agree that there's some exceptions to that, but there's disagreement on where that line should be drawn. And that we're not going to be able to avoid that disagreement at that intersection of those two interests. But I think the approach is the right framework to resolve those differences with that. My hope is that by the end of September, we will have the amended bill reported out of the State Government Committee, and that in October, we will vote the bill in the Senate and send it to the House for its consideration. I would hope that the House would take it up quickly and have it on the governor's desk before we break in this calendar year. So that's my time frame. And we think we have the bill in pretty good shape and ready for reporting out of the State Government Committee, but we want to allow people to look at it, comment on it. I'm focused on advancing my bill. I have had a brief conversation with Senator Furlow and shared with him the approach that I'm taking. I'm not sure what the status of his bill is or what his intentions are. I know there is at least one House bill on the issue, but I'm focused on making my bill the best that I can make it and advancing my bill, and I think it's in a good position and in a form that should gather the majority support that's needed in the Senate to pass to the House. The approach that I take in my bill for the state-related institutions, Lincoln, Pitt, Temple, and Penn State, is to treat them differently from governmental agencies and require them to produce salary information for officers and directors, salary information for, I believe it's the highest 25 paid individuals, and also to produce the information required on Federal Form 990, which is a fairly comprehensive set of information. That's where I am in my bill at this point. I think they make compelling arguments that given the percentage of their funding that is taxpayer supported and their constitution as private institutions yet receiving a significant amount of state dollars, and especially in Penn State and Pitt's situation where they have a history of interaction with private individuals and agencies and significant research and proprietary operations, treating them as if they were the Department of Transportation is not the right way to go. So we think requiring them to produce a much higher level of information than they now produce and in a systematic way is the right way to proceed with state-related.